the start of this year, I would like to recap everything notable that I kind of watched during the period that I took a little hiatus at the end of last year for YouTube. These are not going to be like in depth at all. They're just ones that I would like to note and the things that I have a couple things to say about them and just little thoughts. So first on the list of things that I want to talk about, and I'm not going to go into this to the extent that I went into the new Scoob movie, because the new Spongebob movie did so many wrong things in the same sort of vein that the Scoob movie did, where like the creators lost some of what made it good in the first place, like how they just fucked over Fred and he wasn't a character and not likable at all, even though that's a core component of what made Scooby-Doo good. And for the SpongeBob movies, what made SpongeBob so good wasn't, as I would say, technically the appeal of SpongeBob to kids and adults, because the humor was very applicable to both. There was a lot of dirty jokes or like things that children don't really understand but could still find funny anyway, and then adults obviously just genuinely found it funny. But this SpongeBob movie just completely did not do that at all. It seemed like they lost their own narrative at a certain point. The premise is that Gary goes missing and SpongeBob has to go save him from Poseidon. Was it Poseidon? Must be Poseidon, because Neptune's the regular one. But like 75% of the movie, or the second that they decide they're going on that journey to go get Gary, you kind of forget what the hell's going on, because they just keep hitting you with so many real life actor cameos into odd situations that were just extremely inserted and not necessary at all. Like when Snoop Dogg just suddenly appears and does a movie pirate dance video and then just fucks off. It's like, what was the point of that? And that was all to introduce Antonio Banderas, who was also kind of not necessary, and the whole time they keep hanging out with Keanu Reeves, which also is like supposed to be funny, but he doesn't say anything funny. He's just kind of there. His presence potentially was supposed to be funny, but he didn't do anything funny, and it didn't make sense. There was only one literal funny part of the entire movie, for me, when I genuinely laughed, and where they hit what made old SpongeBob good, which was, hopefully I can just find a small clip-it thing of it, where they just kind of crossed a line into, is this creepy? I feel like this is creepy, and it was. They also threw a whole bunch of flashbacks and character development of the relationships with SpongeBob that didn't need to be there. It's like, this is just another distraction from the main plot. It's like, why did you even make that the main plot? Why is the main thing saving Gary if nothing you're doing is actually saving Gary? It's just a bunch of side quests and random things to fill time. So it was not funny, it was absence of jokes. And also they turned up the nonsense scale, where like SpongeBob and Patrick would just act like literal complete kind of idiots. And that's not funny for anyone. That's not funny for kids. There's no humor in that. There's humor in them doing stupid things. There's no humor in them just being stupid. Another movie I watched that completely missed the mark was She Dies Tomorrow. It sounded like an interesting premise. Kind of, not quite like The Happening or anything like that, but the sort of premise where it's like, this is going to be a little weird to represent, but I'm interested to see how they decide to have the characters interact with this new very odd situation, which is just the knowledge that they're going to die tomorrow. And this knowledge is just something that they have. It's something that seems contagious from one person to another. It's just a very deep-seated, like, I know I'm going to die tomorrow. And watching how people react to that when they get infected, and how the people around them react to them when they just so indefinitely display this sort of depressed mentality that you just kind of want to laugh off really most of the time, or send them immediately to a help center, is very interesting. I did like some of the interactions. I thought that they were well thought out. I thought they were interesting. The most notable one was when someone infects a doctor with the knowledge that he's going to die tomorrow, and it's just a very awkward, semi-lustrous moment where he is like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die tomorrow, maybe we should bang, but it just turns into her having a very motherly moment with him as he starts to cry, because the knowledge to him is much fresher than it is to her, so she's been sitting with it for a little while. She's just like, I don't know exactly what's going on. I came here to see if you could tell me, and now you think you're gonna die, and you're much more upset about it than I am. So she had to comfort him, and then instead of having sex, he just runs home to his wife, because that was the actual appropriate response after the shock of it. The clinging desperately to life aspect of realizing that you're gonna die. Aside from that, I don't have anything good to say about it. I know that a big complaint I had for The Happening was the fact that they gave us too much information. It only remained intriguing because of the mystery behind it. As soon as we started figuring out it was the plants, it was like, what plants, how plants, why plants. And I don't feel like She Dies Tomorrow should have entirely explained to us why the contagious feeling that people are going to die is happening. If it's even real, I do like that it cut and we don't get to know. We get to see that the person that gave the main character this disease is dead. It did happen to him. We don't know how it happened. It could have been staged. He could have killed himself. She could have killed him because he was acting so crazy. That's a part of it that we don't know, and that's part of the mystery, and I liked that. But most of it was like 1/3 of it was really good character interactions. It was very telling. It was very interesting. 1/3 of it was very boring, where they were just kind of aimlessly hanging out, accepting their death, which I can understand, but at the same time, some of the choices, some of the places that they went, like the way that we jumped around, didn't make a whole lot of sense because we weren't getting their thought process, which is just about all we have to keep us interested, is the thought process of someone who thinks they're going to die tomorrow. And the other third of it was just fucking baloney cinematography. Like, She Dies Tomorrow was the most pretentiously shot movie that I have seen in a long time. It was so bad that I started watching it with my boyfriend. He picked the movie. He thought that it would be fun to watch, and he couldn't do it. He quit after half an hour and he never went back. I had to finish it alone because the first half an hour was so goddamn badly done. If you didn't read the description of the movie when you went into it, you watched the whole first half an hour of the movie having no fucking idea what's going on. Like, there's no context, there's absolutely nothing. We're just following this random girl who seems to be tripping on acid in her house, and it's just like her touching things, her listening to the same song over and over and over again, her doing random things until finally her friend shows up to see if she's okay, and then we start to learn about what's really going on. And there's so much, like, aimlessly wandering around with shots on her face with no expression, just kind of dumbfounded. They have a sequence where she walks into a room and there's strobing lights of one color, the other color, one color, the other color, and that lasts for literal minutes of just staring at her, staring at us, and that happening. And it was just, it got a good score on Rotten Tomatoes because if you take it contextually afterwards, you want to talk about the choices behind why they filmed it like that, because they wanted to display the disorientation that she's going through, the transformation, the acceptance, the way that she's handling this new knowledge, how it's affecting her, but in a physical and or metaphorical sense through the cinematography. Yeah, you can argue that if you want. You can take it, you can make a good argument for it, but honestly, watching it was so painful, so boring. It was ridiculous. I do not recommend watching it, and if you do, skip the first 20 minutes, like straight up. It's like 20-minute mark, her friend will show up, and you can not do any of that. On to a couple shows that I watched at the end of 2020. I watched The Haunting of Hill House, which was just, the cinematography in that one was so immaculately done. It was so good. The way they cut from current day to past not only is intertwined narratively, but visually. Like, someone will literally open a door in the present to go do something important that will be linked to something that they had to do in the past, and they will be entering a room at that exact moment. Like, it just flows so beautifully through present and past narration and visuals, and it's the tension too. All of the spook factors were, wait, I can do it. Noise. Unfortunately, like, I was ready to give The Haunting of Hill House straight up 5 out of 5. Like, halfway through the scene, I was like, I don't even fucking care how it ends. This is so goddamn good. But I did have to take points. Ow. Sorry. I did have to take points off for the actual ending. And I feel like it wasn't a problem with the ending itself, which is something strange. The Haunting of Hill House was adapted from a novel by Shirley Jackson, and all of the spooks, all of the cool things, all of the cinematography that made it so good and there was so much tension, the whole duration of it didn't come through in the end because the actual conclusion could never be as scary as what we went through to get there. You had to wrap things up. You had to understand things. And spoiler for the next, 15 seconds, just skip it if you don't want to know the end. Seeing someone passed out on a floor as the conclusion of an entire family's trauma collectively to get to this moment and all of the difficulties that they had to go through to save him, essentially, is the flat fact of seeing a person on the floor passed out and all of them just kind of in the room, because that's the ultimate room, the room that was fucking with their minds this whole time. The physicality of it is not as spooky as all of the things that they've seen and gone through up until this point to get there. There's no way to properly have that be dramatic when they do just overcome it because of what it technically really is, which is a haunted house. Basically, haunted houses with ghosties equal spooky. Physicality of haunted house, not so spooky, just house. And those were all of the notable things that I watched in that 1 to 2 months where I just kind of left. I don't think any of them are going to get a formal larger article, which is why I put them on here.